तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपम् ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्। ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपम् ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्। ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपम् ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्। ॐ
So welcome everyone. So today I was thinking again, just a thought, not sure about it. Shall we take up just Sri Aurobindo's words on basic actions?
Monica, your voice, I can't hear you. It was breaking and then I can't hear you at all. I don't know about others. Can't hear you.
Okay.
Now I can, I guess. I can hear.
Yeah, I can also hear.
Now everybody able to
Yes,
hear?
yes,
Okay.
audible.
Yeah, I'm able to hear. I'm able to hear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll repeat, which was not heard. So I was saying that today I was thinking that maybe we could read a couple of words from Sri Aurobindo himself about Savitri, about the characters, and maybe just touch and refresh the basics. Would anyone be interested in that before we take up the lines? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Monica.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So there is this booklet which I can maybe if I find a PDF of I can share. It's like this A4 size booklet. It's called Introduction to Sri Aurobindo's epic poem Savitri, Words of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And this has been a compilation by Dr. Alok Pandey, 2011. So I just got it by the blessing of the Lord, somewhere free, lying here and there. And I'll try to find a PDF if I have. Otherwise, I can just scan it and share later with everyone for us to read. So just some basics on what is Savitri all about, and his own words, Sri Aurobindo. So he shares that the tale of Satyavan and Savitri is recited in the Mahabharata as a story of conjugal love conquering death. But this legend is, as shown by many features of human tale, one of the many symbolic myths of Vedic cycle. So that's why when we see Savitri, there is on the top, it's a legend and a symbol. Both we see. So it has a symbolic significance also. Now he shares about the characters. Satyavan is the soul carrying the divine truth of being within himself, but descended into the grip of death and ignorance. So all of us, when we take the bodily form, we forget who we truly are. Although we are the souls, we are immortal consciousness, but we forget. So this forgetfulness is ignorance. So he shares that Satyavan is the soul carrying the divine truth of the being within itself, but descended in the grip of death, this matter, and ignorance. Savitri is the divine word, daughter of the sun, goddess of supreme truth, who comes down and is born to save. So this soul consciousness, which has gotten in the grip of death and ignorance, Savitri is going to save the soul consciousness. That's why in the story we see Savitri, taking out Satyavan out of the clutches of death. Ashupati, the lord of the horse, her human father, is the lord of tapasya. So we see Ashupati's tapasya in Savitri that we are reading right now. The lord of horse, whenever we talk about horse power, this stage, this aspect of power that is associated with horse. Ashupati, the lord of horse, her human father, is the lord of tapasya, the concentrated energy of spiritual endeavor that helps us to rise from the mortal to immortal planes. And that is why we see right now, whatever page number 78, 80 we are reading, there we see the king Ashupati's tapasya, how he's just putting besides everything that is trivial and just taking this road to higher and higher degrees of consciousness. So that's the concentrated energy of spiritual endeavor. Dyumatsena, lord of shining hosts, the father of Satyavan. So we see in the story, in the legend, we see that Dyumatsena, father of Satyavan, he has fallen blind. He's lost his kingdom. So Dyumatsena, the lord of shining hosts, father of Satyavan, is the divine mind fallen blind, losing its celestial kingdom of vision. That's why he's shown as blind in the story. And through that loss, its kingdom of glory. So our own minds, they are lost in the forest of thoughts and feelings. And that's why in integral yoga, it's very important and crucial step to bring the mind to an absolute stillness, so that the divinity of the mind can be reclaimed. Divine mind fallen blind, that's Dyumatsena. Still, he says, this is not a mere allegory. The characters are not personified qualities, but incarnations. My voice is breaking. Okay. What can I do? Is it breaking for everyone, the voice?
No.
Not breaking for
No,
you?
no,
Okay.
to me.
Okay. Thank you. So these are all these Savitri, Satyavan, Dyumatsena, Ashupati, these are incarnations or emanations of living and conscious forces with whom we can enter into concrete touch. So here comes the point for us. We can enter into touch with Savitri in us, with Satyavan, with Ashupati, with Dyumatsena. We are all capable of getting in touch with these incarnations, with emanations of living and conscious forces. Okay, and they take human bodies in order to help man and show him the way from his mortal state to the divine consciousness and immortal life. Yeah. So and regarding reading Savitri, that too we have gotten some guidance from directly from Mother and Shiva Bindu themselves. So Mother is sharing, I think it's actually a recollection of Mona Sarkar, of his conversations with the mother. He shares, you must not read Savitri as you read other books or newspapers. You must read with an empty head. So a very good time we would see to read Savitri, although each time is good enough, is, say for example, before we get to sleep, the mind is quietening down and all the hustle bustle of the daily activities is reduced, then is a very good time to read Savitri before sleeping, a couple of lines, pages. And also when we are getting up, because that quietness is there, so we can make use of that quietness. I'm just adding it from my own side. So you must read with an empty head, a blank and vacant mind, without there being any other thought. You must concentrate much, remain empty, calm and open. Then the words, the rhythms, the vibrations will penetrate directly to this white page, the blank empty page of our being. They will put their stamp upon the brain and will explain themselves without your making an effort. Savitri alone is sufficient to make you climb to the highest peaks. So even if we don't read Life Divine or other works, Savitri alone is sufficient to make you climb to the highest peaks if truly one knows how to meditate on Savitri. One will receive all the help one needs. So this is very crucial because many a times it can help us. At times, when we are in trouble, it helps to either reach out to somebody to discuss, brainstorm and all that. But at times, it can also really, really be very beneficial that if we have a question, if we are struggling with something, just to open a page of Savitri and we get a few revelations and answers. And this mother has herself shared. Let me just read. Just a second. Yeah, so this is from the mother again, notes by Mona Sarkar. She's sharing, if you are depressed, if you feel miserable, if you do not succeed in what you do, or else if what happens is always the contrary of what you expect, however much you try, if it has come to such a pass that you lose your temper, life becomes disgusting and you are unhappy, then immediately take Savitri and after a moment's concentration, open any page and read. So this is what mother is suggesting. It's almost like a drop of medicine that we can take. You will see that all your misery disappears like smoke, and you will have the strength to overcome the worst sorrows. You will no longer feel that which was tormenting you. Instead, you will feel a strange happiness, a reversal of consciousness along with the energy and force to conquer everything, as though there was nothing impossible. And you will feel this inexhaustible joy that purifies everything. Read just a few lines, and that is enough to establish the contact with your inmost being. Such is the extraordinary power of Savitri. Or else, after having read, if you concentrate very deeply, then too you can find the solution to what was tormenting you. You have only to open Savitri at random and without thinking, and you will have the answer to all your problems. Do it with faith and simplicity. The result is certain. So this is mother's advice given to Mona Sarkar. And I remember, at one point of time, maybe it was 2017, if I'm not wrong, maybe 18. And I came across first Savitri, and I really wish that this, which appears so Greek and Latin to me, maybe, someday I'm able to make sense. And it's just mother's grace that how I remember how the pages became really revelatory for me when I was going through really a crisis in my life. where nothing was helping, nothing was helping. And then I came across, opened a page at random, I don't know how, and these words where Savitri is undergoing this depressive phase when Satyavan has died, and she's in a very dark period and she's in grief, and a voice comes and tells that go dig, find your soul. So that was the first lines from Savitri that I read, and they really were very alive, because as mother shares that as we go through our experiences in life, Savitri's lines, they become alive for us, more and more becomes alive. Yeah, anything anyone wants to add on, share their experience or whatever. Dr. Anjali, you are not audible. You're speaking, I can see, but not audible. No, no, not audible. Maybe you can take off the wire and put it again wherever it is. It's not put inside.
But in that,
Yeah, now it's okay. Now it's okay. Yeah, it's again gone. Yeah, coming and going.
you know,
Yeah, now it's okay.
okay. With me, I had gone to, that was also phase of my life. It was very difficult. And I just, somebody was saying, and I just bought this Savitri. This was year 97. But until the situation was clear and I was not mentally prepared, I could not read because I could not understand. So it is with everybody, Savitri. And when I was hearing Alok Das lectures on YouTube, and where he said ki whether it is whether you are able to understand it, not just read. And then I have small book by MP Pandit on Savitri, and there also all these examples are there that you should read Savitri. And I found it that whatever page you open, in whatever state you are, and for 2 lines you will get the answer. The opening lines will be there. Like we read Ramayana or Mahabharata or Gita and we leave the pages that regularly I have to read. So I started reading Savitri with this attitude that it doesn't matter that I understand, because Alukda always say that it is not essential that you take dictionary along with you, just leave. And at one place I had read that mother said that when you start reading Savitri, then these cells are formed so that you are able to understand it. And so this is, this is called satsang or things like that, that you hear and then you are able to understand Savitri. And yes, what you were saying that open it randomly. Last year, since last year after COVID, things were very difficult in everybody's household. And then I started reading it regularly. And for that period, it gave me, and I think gradually your the calmness or quietness of the mind which you seek otherwise, you are not able to. But when you read it, and then you are able to find it. So one of my friend also who joined many courses in IPI in Pondicherry, she said that it is very difficult. I'm not able to understand. I'm not able to understand. And I, with this faith in my heart that no matter I understand it or not, but Savitri is there. So you are in mothers. That's what I wanted to share.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank
It
you.
took long, so long years, 97 and then 2007.
Yeah.
And then after 2007, 2017, I regularly started reading it.
Yeah.
How much time it took.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all mother's grace. That
Yes.
when I was prepared, then she started giving me.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
That was very.
Yeah. There was a person I came across, and she had a near-death experience also.
Okay.
And she was sharing that she's finding it very difficult, that as if she never really truly felt human from the very beginning. And she had this near-death experience when she was a child, like 8, 9 years old. And of course, as a child, you don't know what to make sense of it. You are just naturally that consciousness, whatever that thing has given you. And then she said that I was always I knew that I was always different because I could not really touch that human experience of pain, grief, and all that. But people would come to me for healing because, somehow she was able to heal. And then as she grew up, after I think many, many years, she got to know from her mother that she had this experience, near that experience. And she now realized that she is not able to connect with human pain and misery because of that experience that came so early in her life. So she was begging to the universe to give her the human experience of pain, grief, so that she can understand what it is all
What is
about.
going on?
Yeah. So then she shared, then suddenly a shift happens, and she was not in that consciousness which was granted, gifted to her earlier. And now she was in human experience, which is, of course, full of pain, struggles, turmoil, and all that. And now she was sharing the confusion that she was going through, that she feels that, what do I do now? Do I go back to that consciousness, or do I remain in this, or because something doesn't feel right, And then when I heard her story, then I shared with her that maybe it's time to get to Savitri, because Savitri is exactly that, born into, if we read the story, how Savitri is taken a human form, yet she is divine origin, she remembers her divine origin. She knows that she is born for something else before she falls into grief for Satyavan. And now she's here for integrating that human experience with the divine experience. That's what our task is. So when she heard this, she had almost like goosebumps, because she shared that Savitri was one of the books that she was attracted to, without even knowing why she was attracted to it. Just like you shared
Yes.
that you had this book 97. And she said that she then showed me her copy, the physical copy that was lying in front. And she said that I've been reading this, Savitri for a long time along with other people, but I never knew what it is all about. But now I think maybe it's now time to maybe go into it and experience it deeply. So that's how it happens. That's how it
Yes.
happens. Yeah. Beautiful. Anyone wants to add on? There anything they want to share since we are at it?
Yeah. So, in fact, Monica, the other day that you had sent the video about Gopi Krishna. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And after, so I went through that video, and then I read a little about him. And I think there is a part of what he experienced. It's on Wikipedia. He's, sort of mentioned it. And so true, because also with, I mean, I've been hearing about, Savitri for so long. And I went to Pondicherry, and I've been coming and going, and I've never, I mean, yeah, it was always this thing, right? Such a difficult book to read. And this came up, and when I read, actually, I think there was this, not a shift, but more like the experience, like you said, no, when I read his experience of what he's mentioned and how he went through the process, and for 12 years evolving over a period of time, it was like really kind of shaking. The experience was quite shaken up for me. And then obviously I just could sort of relate to, because it's really difficult sometimes to understand what one is going through also. So, and then you can relate to some of the things that comes across in the book. And when, of course, when we read the lines, you feel it even more immensely, I think. That's what my feeling is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And mother has shared that the more we get in true connection with our life experiences, the more Savitri's lines, they glow out for us. They come out alive for us. Those lines which we
Yeah.
have experienced truly. Yes.
Yeah, like today when you said, you said the line that you read, dig deeper, right? Isn't that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
And in similar similar sort of sentences or messages have been slowly coming up in the past from the last couple of months. And so that's thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yes. So just a few lines on Ashupati's experience, and then we can go on with the lines that we want to take up today. Ashupati's yoga, it's Sri Aurobindo's own words. Ashupati's yoga falls into three parts. First, he is achieving his own spiritual fulfillment. That's what we are going through, these experiences of Ashupati's yoga. First, he is achieving his own spiritual fulfillment as an individual, and this is described as the yoga of the king. Next, he makes the ascent as a typical representative of the race to win the possibility of discovery and possession of all the planes of consciousness. And this is described in the second book. But this too is as yet only an individual victory. Finally, he aspires no longer for himself, but for all, for a universal realization and new creation. That is described in the book of the Divine Mother, when he's saying that no, you have to come, you have to save the existence. And then Divine Mother says, okay, I will be there. So then he brings the Divine Mother down for everyone. And we see in Savitri's yoga also, later we see that Savitri is given attractions at various planes of consciousness. Stay here, this is full of beauty, full of delight. Why don't you, two of you, you can stay here very easily. But she says, no, I don't want all this beauty and delight for just myself. I want it for all of creation. So that's what. So anything anyone wants to add on before we take up the lines today? Okay, so assuming nothing, going forward, thank you for your patience for the introduction. So today we have to start from page number 80, the last few lines. We'll start from there. But before that, we'll make an overlap. So starting from on page 80, starting from a pilgrim of the everlasting truth. So if one by one, we can all read these lines colored, starting from blue color.
A pilgrim of the everlasting truth. Our measures cannot hold his measureless mind. He has turned from the voices of the narrow realm and left the little lane of human time.
In the hushed precincts of a vaster plan, he treads the vestibules of the unseen, or listens, following a bodiless guide, to a lonely cry in the boundless vacancy.
All the deep cosmic murmur falling still, he lives in the hush before the world was born, his soul left naked to the timeless one.
Yeah, far from compulsion of created things, thought and its shadowy idols disappear, the molds of form and person are undone. The ineffable wideness knows him for its own.
A lone forerunner of the Godward earth, among the symbols of yet unshaped things, watched by closed eyes, mute faces of the unborn, he journeys to meet the incommunicable, hearing the echo of his single steps in the eternal courts of solitude.
A nameless marvel fills the motionless hours. His spirit mingles with eternity's heart and bears the silence of the infinite.
Thank you, everyone. So we were talking about in the last few lines this solitude that one has to go through. There is no other possibility because it's a path which can be only walked alone, no matter how big a community we may be part of, who may be together on the spiritual path, and yet it's a lone journey of soul to its higher consciousness. So he journeys to meet the incommunicable and hearing the echo of his single steps. So he is the only one, he can hear himself, the echo of his own steps in the eternal courts of solitude. And his being is full of delight, this delight, the static and dynamic delight of the being that he's experiencing. A nameless marvel fills the motionless hours. You know, marvel is whenever we use the word, how marvelous, like something we can't describe in words, something which is wonderful, or in Hindi we have the word adbhut, that is beyond any explanation. So that kind of a delight, a nameless marvel and delight, it fills the motionless hours. Hours, he's gone beyond time, because when there is thought, then there is time. When we have gone beyond thought, we enter into a motionless, because whenever motion is there, any movement is there, thought is also a movement. So we are bound in time. But the possibilities of spaces that we have where we are not in thought, trapped in thought, not trapped in thought, then we are beyond time. So this experience is happening beyond time, motionless hours. Nothing is moving. A nameless marvel fills the motionless hours, although time is there. So again, a paradox. Motionless hours. So it's happening in the eternal time, and yet you have a experience of absolute stillness, silence, and peace and delight. His spirit mingles with eternity's heart and bears the silence of the infinite. So when we have to bear something, we have to bear a delight, we have to bear a joy, or bear a pain. So he's now bearing the silence of the infinite. One can just imagine, even if when we reflect upon these words, try bearing the silence for a few moments. You will see that the being becomes very restless. So the adhar that we have, the lower consciousness, the receptacle that we have, it is not capable of bearing too much of silence. Those of us who have observed, after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or some kind of silence, we say to ourselves, okay, enough now, I have to move. Have you observed that? That's what happens with us. So we have to make our adhar, our base, the mortal frame that we have, so strong and solid that it is able to bear the silence of the infinite. Otherwise, a glimpse of silence and then we are just scattered all around. We can't bear it. Too much of power and peace. We can't bear it. Something in us wants to move, something becomes restless. And that's what we call as grace. There are people who we may have come across who have a lot of, in Hindi we say therav, actually, that like they can bear a lot. They can bear love without spilling it out. They can bear pain without spilling it out. They can bear a lot of peace and equanimity without kind of, spilling it all around, scattering it all around. So that's how his adhar is ready, so the base is willing, and he bears the silence of the infinite. That's where we stopped last time. So I'm taking this opportunity. I take many opportunities, and thanks to all of you that you allow me to take these opportunities. I'm adding something here from essays of Nolini on this loneliness that we have just come across with Ashupati's lone journey. So just taking that up, I've just copied and pasted it on my computer. This lone to lone. I thought maybe just to go through this paragraph and maybe it will reveal something for us. So Taru, would you like to read the paragraph out for us if you have the capacity?
Yeah, so I should start from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lone to the lone, Nolini. The how do you pronounce this?
Quintessence.
Quintessence. Yeah, thank you. The quintessence of spirituality is said to consist in, as has been described in the famous phrase of Alexandrian mystic philosopher Plotinus, the flight of the lone to the lone. God is a solitary and the other solitary is the soul. So when one solitary mingles with the supreme solitary, the result is utter solitariness, which is spirituality at its apex, its highest height. He is indivisible, single, absolute unity. The human being too is not in reality the individual person bounded within a body, life and mind formation, standing in reciprocal relations with such other formations. His inner core of truth and substance is a unitary center of consciousness.
Yeah, it's called
Matra Purusha.
Angusht Matra Purusha. Yeah.
Which is aloof and apart from his apparent and assumed personality and has no dealing with such personalities. Should I pause?
Yes, you
Or
can.
should
Yeah.
I?
Yeah. That's a good thought. Thank you. So this is those of us who have maybe come across these words earlier. So this is been described as a being around the size of a thumb, and that's where our Godhead is in our self. So God is indivisible, single, absolute unity. I think this would clarify many things for us. For those of us, many a times we think that, God is sitting somewhere else doing torture to me, or maybe doing good to me. So this, when he says he is indivisible, single, absolute unity, then this clarifies everything. Because if I am saying that God is somewhere else, then I'm actually making him limited. Then if he is somewhere else, then he must start somewhere else and end somewhere else. But there is nothing but him in the whole of existence. So it cannot be possible that we are all different from the divine. It is not possible that God is somewhere else and he is looking like at me who is somewhere else. So we are like one with each other. He is indivisible. Can akhand, in Hindi we use the word akhand, that which cannot be divided. He is indivisible, single, absolute unity. And human being too is not really in reality the individual person bounded within body, life and mind. So this is what we think ourselves to be. Who am I? I am this limited person, limited in the body. These are my thoughts, these are my feelings, that's it. So we are also not that. He says, standing in reciprocal relations with such other formation. What does it mean? That I am limited, I am bound by my body, thoughts and feelings, and so are other beings, limited, bound by their feelings, their body. So he says it's not like that. It's just the appearance that makes it appear that way. His inner core of truth truth and substance is a unitary center of consciousness, Angushtha Matra Purusha, a being around the signs of a thumb. That's our true Godhead within, which is aloof and apart from his apparent and assumed personality. So the assumed personality is this person that I am in this life. That's my apparent assumed personality. Monica is the role that I play in this life. But who is the true being? That's the being hidden. He doesn't show himself in operation. He's hidden inside, who has to be found if we want to be in communion with that. And has no dealings with such personality. So he has nothing to do with our entanglements and all these little things that we get engaged in. He's like standing aloof, solitary. So he's talking about that solitariness, that we are all actually, truly speaking, we are solitary beings, and we unite with the God who is also solitary, because there is nothing else but the divine. So that's why God is also solitary. Yeah. And then he talks about something very beautiful, where he says that as if we have to take off our clothes. And that's what also comes in Savitri, where we see in Ashupati's yoga, the vestibules of the unseen. So he's entering these vestibules of the unseen. He's taking off all the garments that we are wearing, the garments of ignorance. So yes, now we can maybe go ahead a little. Yeah.
God has no upadhi, phenomenal qualification, neither has the soul of man. Therefore, in his spiritual aspiration, man has to divest himself of all the outer growths that cover and bury his soul. With the clear, unmixed vision of his pure soul, he has to look straight into the face of the divine, transcendent, shredded too of its cosmic vesture, and rise from the station of ignorance. This level ground of clay to which it is pinned, and soar and fly and merge into the pure reality of the pure spirit. Therefore, it is said, naked we come into the vale of tears, and naked we have to go back to our home. Or in terms of another imagery, it is the pure pouring into the pure, the full mixing into the full.
Yeah, I think maybe we can take a pause here also. So here, it's so beautiful that therefore in his spiritual aspiration, man has to divest himself of the outer growths that cover and bury his soul. So I think one has to actually come to a point that one can't live suppressing one's soul's consciousness, the true calling of the heart, because we live two simmering lives. We are like half cooked, half ripe, and for a long time we remain half cooked, half ripe, half cooked, half ripe. Like it's amazing to see that how can we tolerate such kind of a life. A Buddhist, I think mystic, Buddhist and Christian mystic Thomas Merton, he said that the biggest tragedy is that the man is too satisfied with too little. So how can we be so happy with our mediocre lives? How? Something must really poke us every day that what is the kind of life that I am living? Is it worth living? So in this spiritual aspiration, man has to divest, one has to get rid of all the outer growths that cover and bury his soul. So many a times we see that in our day-to-day lives and relationships and all that, we are saying that I want to do this, but I'm not able to because people are saying this, parents and mothers are saying this, all these excuses that we give. So whether it's a passion that we want to live out or whether it's a true call, we must live it out. We must. And at one point of time, Nolini says that one has to recognize that inner call and hold very fast to it without refusing that call for any necessity or outer obligation. Like nothing doing, you can't help but follow that call. So all these outer growths, outer excuses that we have, oh, I'm so busy with this, oh, I'm so occupied with that, we have many things that keep us occupied. All these outer coverings have to be divested. We have to get rid of that. They are burying our soul. And with the clear, unmixed vision of his pure soul, he has to look straight into the face of divine. Now, what is my path forward? That's the divine. Divine is always the path forward. And Mother in prayers and meditation, she shares that the more I come closer to thee, the more you escape me. So we think that, oh, there it is where I wanted to reach. Now I have reached it. But then when we have reached that stage, we see that, oh, there is further more. There is further more. There is further more. So there is no end to perfection in life. There is no end to mastery in life. And that's divine. The more we go closer to the divine, the more further away it moves. And we have to rise from the station of ignorance, this level of ground clay to which it is pinned, as if how we have animals, farm animals, and they are pinned to the anchor. Like they go round and round around that anchor, but they can't run and escape. So that's how we are pinned to our ignorance and mortal frame. That this level ground of clay to which it is pinned, we have to rise from that and soar and fly and merge into the pure reality of the pure spirit. Therefore it is said, naked we come into the vale of tears, and naked we have to go back to our home. Why naked? Because all these degrees we may have, all these experiences of past spiritual experiences we may have, they are nothing in front of what has to be achieved. So one has to divest oneself when we go to the Lord. We have to become totally naked. And this is a very good experience when we read life story of Mother Sri Aurobindo. When Mother came to Pondicherry for the very first time, how she had so many experiences to her, experience of Gita, psychic realization, this realization, many occult experiences. But in front of Sri Aurobindo, she realized that she is nothing. And she was as she explains in the prayers and meditations, she said, I am as good as a newborn child. So that's what we have to become every day. Nothing to carry of the past. No experiences, how rich the experiences they may have been, they don't need to be carried, because what lies in front is too vast. Yeah, anyone wants to share? You can unmute and share anything if you want. So now he talks about how from an amorphous jelly-like mass, like people are saying this, my relatives are saying this, society wants this from me, but I don't know what I want. So how from this collective amorphous mass, we develop into an ego personality. That's where ego is a helper, but later on it becomes a bar. So initially ego is the helper because it tells me, okay, what do I want? People may be saying that, collective suggestions may be saying that, yeah, there may be demand of engineers and biologists in the outside world, but what do I want? So that's the rising of the ego consciousness. So neti, like doing neti neti, we come to a personality, like a temporary individuality, which is the ego personality. Yeah, it's a short one, so no need to bother for those of us who may be bothering about if it's a long one. Yeah, so anyone who wants to, yeah, Taru, can you continue, please?
Yeah, and just one comment, Radu too, in one of Alok's talk, he had shared that a disciple had asked a guru that, how they speak about Ganges, that it purifies you, right? Like how we know, right? It said that, is it true? And the guru said that, yes, it is true. But the problem with us is that we take off our clothes, we take a dip in the holy Ganges, and then we go back and wear the same clothes. So many times we have experiences, right? And yet we believe that, that was out of ordinary. And this, this glass, this cup of tea, this relationship, this situation, this is my reality. And I wear that again and I again, in that loop. And even from the Mahabharata, the Krishna thing, when he took the clothes of the gopis, right, when they wanted to cover up, and he said no, and then he himself gave them the clothes. So when we were reading that paragraph, that's also quite symbolic, right? That give it off, like there's nothing to hide. That when you say your mind, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Yes, yes. Yeah.
okay. Man must isolate himself from his phenomenal being, certainly as the neti neti formula enjoins, but also he must first find or become his real self, realize his true individuality before he can reach God, the divine self, identify himself with the transcendent. It is only a freely and truly formed individual being that can give itself to the divine or become one with it. The true individuality is indeed a solitary being away and apart from the crowd of personalities that surround it. It has been called by the Indian mystics the Purusha in the heart, no bigger than the thumb, the dwarf godhead, Vamana. When one is a member of the crowd, he has no personality or individuality. He is an amorphous mass moving helplessly in the current of life, driven by nature force as it pleases her. Spiritual life begins by withdrawing oneself from this flow of ignorance and building up or taking cognizance of one's true person and being. When one possesses oneself integrally, is settled in the armature of one's spirit self, he has most naturally turned away from the inferior personalities of his own being and the comradeship also of people in bondage and ignorance.
Thank you. So this is very beautiful. This is very, very clear, and how an individuality develops. So imagine, very simple example that there are 10 people living at home and there is a celebration to attend. Now, as the flow of ignorance goes, everyone says, okay, let's go, there is a celebration. But and all of them can't even question that, okay, why do I need to go? There may be a celebration, but why do I need to go? I don't feel the need to go. So initial thing starts with this questioning, that I don't feel the need to go. Now in the beginning it appears like arrogance, That's where the ego personality, that, oh, that person is so arrogant, can't he just go with us? Why does he need to be so arrogant? So this is how we develop an individual personality, that what is the flow of arrogance, that everybody, whatever everybody does, okay, I will also do. Everybody gets married, okay, let me get married. Everybody has children, let me get children. So no questioning, nothing to ask really truly ourselves, what do I really, really want? People may be having jobs and money, but why do I want job and money? What is it going to give me? So we never question. So with questioning and neti begins the forming of, from an amorphous mass, like a jelly-like mass, we begin to form into a kind of a murti, like a rigid personality develops. In the beginning, it appears like an arrogant personality, because you have your own thoughts, you have your own opinions. So people may hit at you that, why are you so rigid? Can't you be little flexible? So we may get hit by people, but that's okay, because that's required. So everybody goes to birthday celebrations, but today you decide, okay, there may be a birthday celebration, but I don't want to go. I don't need feel the need to go. So that's your own individual opinion, and this is how a ego personality develops. You have your own thinking, you have your own questioning. This is what I want, this is what I don't want. So here ego is the helper. So neti, also he must find or become his real self. So after this ego self is formed, after that we still go on, we don't settle at the ego self, because ego self is a very burdening kind of a self. It is a very heavy burden. So after the ego self is done, we move to our true individuality, which is the psychic individuality, the inner call, the aspiration towards a higher life. He realize his true individuality. This has to be done. That's why in integral yoga we say, first dig out your soul consciousness, find out who you truly are before you can reach the divine, which is the transcendent divine. So that's later. Superman, divine realization comes later. First, you know who you truly are. What is your mission in this life? What are your inherent likings, preferences according to the swabhava? What is your swadharma? That has to be found. This true individuality is indeed a solitary being. Now, when we are connecting more and more with our swabhava, we see that, oh yeah, I feel alone. Now I don't have a company all the time, because there are things that I want to do which other people maybe not want to do. So the true individuality is indeed a solitary being and apart from the crowd of personalities that surround it. So there may be 10 people at home, but you feel still lonely because you don't partake of much of their activity flow. You don't connect with it, you don't resonate with it. You're developing now your own stream of thought, your own swabhava, unfolding of life, so dharma is happening. So, there is a solitariness that one feels. And that's what we were referring to earlier, Angushta Matra Purusha, a being no bigger than the thumb, more and more uniting with our true consciousness, the witnessing consciousness, which allows us to unfold our true life. When one is a member of crowd, he has no personality or individuality. He is an amorphous mass. So, okay, today they are saying, go to a celebration. Yes. Today they are, all of them are saying, okay, go to, today there is a function in the temple, let's go there. Okay, yes. So amorphous mass, you have no thought of your own. Wherever the flow takes you, you go. So amorphous mass moving helplessly in the current of life. And also we can refer here to flow of anger. Anger comes, I am swayed by anger. And jealousy comes, I am swayed by jealousy. I don't even ask myself, do I really want to be swayed? Do I want to follow the dictate of anger? Do I want to follow the dictate of desire? There is no questioning. So all this collective mass of flow of desire, anger, collective movements of lust, ambition, they come, they sway me, I get swayed. So there is no mastery in the being that no, I don't want to get swayed. There is no questioning so far, but now it begins to happen. So moving helplessly in the current of life, driven by nature force as it pleases her, spiritual life begins by withdrawing oneself from this flow of ignorance and building up or taking cognizance of one's true person and being. So taking the witnessing stance. Okay, the flow of desire may have come, but what do I want? When one possesses oneself integrally, is settled in the armature of one's spirit self, this witnessing consciousness more and more, taking a stance there, that's my true station, and not the surface movements of anger, desire, lust, greed, and all that. He has most naturally turned away from the inferior personalities of his own being. So I could have been a lowly creature, but I rise up every moment. I try, I make an effort not to give in the dictates of anger, desire, jealousy, all that disturbing emotions. So he turns away from the inferior personalities of his own being and comradeship also of the people in bondage and ignorance. So many of us, we go through these phases in our life where we can't connect with the collective relations around us. So they want to do something, but you don't want it now. You don't find a delight in that. So we may want to go and celebrate at ISKCON or, nothing against it, but, that kind of a celebration. But now you don't feel the need. So all the activities that as human beings we get involved in out of a necessity, that why would I do that? Oh, because all of us are doing that. And why would you question that? Actually, all of us are doing that. Why can't you do that? So we begin to question it. One rises above from bondage and ignorance. This is how first we develop a ego personality. One can say arrogant also many a times. And then slowly that has to be shed off and march on towards the true mission, true calling in the life. Swabhava, and then the unfolding of Swadharma. So these are necessary steps on the way. Right away, the divine realizations cannot help, cannot be happening. So this is like how we rise up in the ladder. Anyone wants to add on? Okay, so maybe we can now take, Anjali, Dr.
Yeah,
Anjali.
just what you are saying, that developing your individuality first, then you may be arrogant. The problem lies is, on one way, integral yoga says that you need not to leave the world. There's no necessity for sannyas and going all these things. And Vivekanand has also said that this is the mud of and in this mud you have to rise like a lotus. So it's a difficult situation that I know what I don't want to be swayed away by all this. Like generally what happens in family, everybody has to cut the cake for birthday cake, birthday cake, birthday cake. Whereas I want to spend my time, birthday time, along in silence, in meditation, being close to the divine. But since I'm living in this family, then I have to look towards the happiness of others also. So there's a conflict in, it is not adjustment problem. It's actually, I know what is my goal. I don't find interest in this gossip that who is doing what, whose daughter, whose son, whose daughter-in-law, and all these things, because I know that everybody is a different person. But at times it's very, how can I say that it's a difficult, that I'm not swayed away, but I'm in conflict. So how to deal with this situation?
I think one thing which comes across in Mother's and Sri Aurobindo words again and again is that the more we really, really, really intensely want a purified life, if inward purification is very intense and is happening very rapidly, outer situation happen. They happen in a way that suit your yoga. So I would say, and again, this is not that I am saying this, from Mother's and Sri Aurobindo words, what I gather so far is that if your own intensity of aspiration rises from within, which is an inward journey, you don't have to show it to anybody else, then situations happen in such a way that all which is unnecessary withers away from your life. It's like taken away completely. So I think we can, instead of, since now you are in that situation, and of course there is no point being in conflict and suffering because of that conflict. So I think if we can focus more on intensifying our aspiration that no, I truly, truly, really want a silent and calm birthday, or mother, you guide. First aspiring what you want, and then offering it to the mother. I think this is very important, which we forget. So mother talks in power of imagination, that you create a beautiful imagination. Like what, for example, in this matter is, what would I like for my birthday? I would like a deep, silent kind of a celebration. And you imagine, you visualize it fully, give it colors, whatever, as far as you can go. So mother says, do create a beautiful visualization, and then you offer it to the divine. What we do is, we don't offer, we forget to offer. We may have our plans in the head, but we don't offer. Offering is an act of purification. So what happens is that, mother, this is what I wish, but of course I am ignorant, I don't know what truly is my need. So mother, up to you now. Whatever you choose, I will go by that. Then we are very relaxed. Visualization also has been done, aspiration has been taken forward, but a relaxation is also there in the being. One is not carrying like a burden on the shoulder, because one has faith in the mother that, won't mother give me the situation if I really, really, really need it? So I think these opposing situations come only to purify our inner aspiration, like a gymnasium. So if now it will make you more convinced that, what is it that I really truly want for my birthday, for example, in this case. You aspire for it, you create a visualization, but then don't forget actually to offer it completely, and forget about it then. And then see what is
Okay.
offered.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
There are many more questions, but I don't want to later on.
Wow,
Thank you so much.
ma'am, that was a revelation. Past
Yeah.
3 minutes, what you said, truly something which I had never known. Thank you.
Yeah. So this mother has shared in her own words that, since we are always thinking, we can't help but think, create a beautiful thing, and just remember to offer, create it. So because whenever we want to be thought free, it's like we are under a pressure that, oh my God, thoughts may not come. So mother says, okay, don't put yourself under pressure. If you see yourself, you are creating something in your head, just create it beautifully, add all the colors, vibrant intensities as you want to add, but offer. And then that's the way to use the power of imagination and power of thought. So shall we just finish the last few lines? Saru, would you please mind going ahead?
Yeah, sorry. But then one need not stop at this purely negative poise. One can move up and arrive at a positive status, a new revaluation and affirmation. For when the divine selfhood is attained, one is no longer sole or solitary. Indeed, the solitariness or loneliness that is attributed to the spiritual status is a human way of viewing an experience. That is the impression left on the normal mind consciousness when the Purusha soars out of it, upwards, from the life of the world to the life of the spirit. But the soul, The true spiritual being in the individual is not and cannot be an isolated entity. The nature of the spiritual consciousness is first transcendence, no doubt, transcendence of the merely temporal and ephemeral, but it is also universalization, that is to say, the cosmic realization that has its classic expression in the famous mantra of the Gita. He who sees himself in other selves and other selves in his own self. In that status, own and other are not distinct or contrary things, but aspects of the one and the same reality, different stresses in one rhythm. The
Okay.
flight, should I pause?
You want to pause? Good to pause.
I think I can read.
Oh yeah, please
I'm
go
reading.
ahead.
The flight then represents the freedom, the movement and height of the soul, but there is also the other, the horizontal movement leading to expansiveness and comprehension. One is transcendental, the other global or cosmic. First, we have to reject the false formations one by one, sheath by sheath, as it is described in the Upanishads, and arrive at the purest core of truth and reality. But again, we have to come back, take up anew the true formation. What was renounced has to be reintegrated in the divine becoming. While we are in ignorance, our relations with men and the world are false and ignorant. But once we attain our true self, we find the same self in men and things, and we have no more revulsion for them. Yeah.
Tato na viju gupsate. So one doesn't shrink away. So I think this would also answer, Dr. Anjali, your question, what you were sharing. So what we read so far until here, this point, was that one is rising above from a mass of jelly, like collective ignorance, collective suggestions, and you rise above and you say, okay, not that, not that, not that, not that, this is what I want. So you rise above from that mass. Now he shares that we don't have to end at that negative visualization. We can go further. We have to go further. And this is what we also see in the Life Divine Synthesis of Yoga, that first Sri Aurobindo says this, not this, maybe, okay, this is how this is helpful. And then he creates a whole larger synthesis, because nothing can be excluded. So we cannot live a life where we are wanting my own life to be very special and rejecting all the other people in my life. So that's an intermediate stage that we were at. Now he shares that from this negative poise that we created, negative points means I don't want to do this, this is not what I want, okay, this is what I want. So this is like negation. Neti was what was happening. From this negative poise, one can move up and arrive at a positive status, a new revaluation and reaffirmation for when the divine selfhood is attained. So when we truly are going forward in our realizations, we see that we become actually, not even in theory, we actually feel a oneness with the others. So taking that example of the birthday thing, for example, so we would say, okay, it doesn't matter, because there is so much joy in the being, there is so much oneness that you feel with the others, that you say, okay, as you were sharing for their happiness, let me cut the cake. because there is divine everywhere. But we are not reaching it only in mental theory. This is a practical realization that has to happen. Because if we are reaching only in mental theory, there will be a frustration alongside that. We can't ignore that. Yeah. So when one rises further in this realization, one feels one with all. One is no longer sole or solitary. So that solitariness was a stage on the way, but that's not it. There is further more, because if divine is everywhere and the divine is all, and we are rising in our divine realizations, then we have to feel one with others. It will happen automatically as a result of practical realizations. So indeed, the solitariness or loneliness that is attributed to the spiritual status in a human way of viewing the experience, upwards from the life of world to the, you feel lonely and, as if you don't have much connection. But the soul, the true spiritual being in the individual, is not and cannot be an isolated entity. The nature of spiritual consciousness is first transcendence, first transcending from the amorphous mass, no doubt. Transcendence of the merely temporal and ephemeral. So who am I? I am not which perishes. I am not the perishable. I am the imperishable. You're rising away from the perishable. But it is also universalization. So then when you gain stature in your being, you unite with your Godhead within. You come back and embrace the manifestation and you say, yes, I am this, I am this, I am this, I am this, and I am all of this. So this is the whole movement. And all these annoyances, frustrations, this feeling, struggles, these are just on the way. We can't avoid them. They will come. We can't avoid them, but then we again move on and move on. Yeah. So this, towards the end, he says, the flight then represents the freedom. So now one is not even bonded into an egoistic, limited personality, and one feels the joy of the others. This practical realization that has happened, one feels the joy, one can rejoice in others' happiness. If other are happy, I am happy because I am their divine self. It's the same thing. And also one suffers in the suffering of others, because how can I be removed from that suffering? If somebody is in depression, I feel the darkness that one goes through. So one reaches out to help. One prays, one invokes the divine. Empathy, this is why one rises in empathy. But one doesn't shrinks in, like, their darkness doesn't become my darkness, because there is a constant union and communion with that higher. Many a times it happens, it has happened with me also, one recent experience, that many a times you meet people and we see that there is so much suffering around, darkness around. But in that moment, if we lose touch with the mother, what happens is that darkness begins to overwhelm us. So we have to maintain this continuity. We have not to lose touch with the mother's consciousness. Then we can resonate that whatever, in an objective way, detached manner, we can reach out and help others without suffering in their suffering. Because if I suffer in their suffering, then I'm of no use. I'm only of use when I can empathize truly with their suffering and maybe show them light, but not suffer in their suffering. But of course, you feel the pain, you feel the darkness one goes through, because there is oneness that you feel. So first we have to reject the false formations one by one, sheath by sheath, and the process goes on and on and on, and arrive at the purest core of truth and reality. But again, we have to come back. So we can't just be absorbed in that purest core. We have to connect with the whole of manifestation, the relationships around, in a new way, now in a non-sticky manner. Now there is a disinterested love. There is love, but earlier love was mixed with emotions and attachments, and this is what I want from you, what are you going to give me, I gave you so much, all that. But now it's a disinterested kind of a love. You just love because you can't help it. You are there. There is love that is in the being. And it's a disinterested love. There is no selfish agendas associated. So there we come back, take up the new true formation. And what was renounced, we renounced all these worldly affairs earlier, in order to unite with our divine being. So what was renounced earlier, it has to be now reintegrated in the divine becoming. While we are in ignorance, our relations with the men and world are false, ignorant, because they are based on what can you give me. All these relationships are, okay, this is what I want from your life. This is how your life should be, according to my opinions, my ideas. So there is a lot of dominance, control, and all that. Stickiness, sticky affairs. So they are false, ignorant, but once we attain our true self, we find the same self in men and things, and we have no more revulsion for them. We don't shrink away from them. So if somebody is dying and diseased, I would not say, no, I am not going to touch you. I would be able to go close and hold the person's hand completely. So there is no revulsion, there is no shrinking. Now it can happen. Earlier, better that I shrink, because just like a sapling has to be protected like a fence around it. So earlier it is important to have that fence around, because we are rising into some higher truth. And on the way, there are troubles and turmoils which sway us. But when we regain that light within us, and that has to be a continuous process, then we are able to come back to the filth, because the work lies in the filth. So I also realized that this person next to me, who earlier appeared very repulsive to me, what does he truly want? He also wants a union with his own divine nature, just like I wanted. And I'm still wanting, because the journey goes on and on and on. So everybody wants to be loved, to be cared, to have more and more progress, joy. We want to contribute in society. What can I contribute? In which way we can contribute? So that brings us joy. Everybody wants that. So now you are able to connect that, okay, this is also important for the other person. Let me give him some space. Let me allow the person's flowering, blossoming also. Because it's the same self in all men. So that understanding we have to come back now to the level, and now we shrink from nothing. Tato na vijugupsati. Yeah. So I think it's.
So you mean
yeah.
to say that we have to continue walking on the sunlit path? Because as you said, that once you achieve, so it's an ongoing process. You can't say that I have found my psychic being. But it's the process. It's in process of being.
Yeah, but one just have to be careful, because it's
Yes.
not, I think the carefulness that we have to be taken into consideration is that it's a conscious process of digging out most of the times. So I cannot live an ordinary, unconscious, half ignorant life and then say that, oh, since it is a long process, what can I do? With mothers.
Long process, I am saying about in our sadhana, we are trying to find our original being.
Yeah.
So that is a continuous process until I reach there and then come back. So it's a continuous process.
Continuous process. Yes. And all the outer triggers, outer triggers on the way, these outer triggers, that if somebody says something, how am I triggered? So all the external difficulties have to be taken in a sense, what mother says, that all difficulties lie within me. So something may have happened in the outer.
Right.
But how did it trigger me? Why did I get triggered? What was the soft spot in me? So in that we grow in, as you were sharing, in finding our true consciousness. When I take all the outer triggers as my own growth, and I don't try to fix it out there. Usually in our unconsciousness, we are trying to fix it out there. That person has to fix himself, this person has to fix himself, nothing is wrong with me. But in a true yogic consciousness, this is how we, as you are saying, this journey that is a long and arduous journey. On the way, since there will be a trigger all the time, in day-to-day life, there are triggers. So how to take those triggers in our stride? That if something triggers me, then I have to work on that root, that seed that is still there in me, which gets triggered every time, and to uproot it every time and not try to fix something out there. Yeah, so that's, yeah, I totally resonate that it's a long process, but then there are steps also mother has given towards finding, digging out the psychic. So also consciously walking upon that, using outer difficulties as our own weaknesses and working upon them. So as much as possible, of course there would be failures on
Being
the
vigilant
way.
about your inner
Being vigilant.
movements, and right,
Yeah, being vigilant, yes.
just like a guard.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, anyone wants to add on anything? So I think we'll maybe next time we'll continue with the newer lines, and this, all this that we have read today, this will we'll see in Ashupati's yoga. That's why I wanted to share that these are steps that have, they are necessary steps. We can't avoid these steps, and it is good to just go through them when one has the opportunity to go through them. Although it can happen, of course it happens that one may have no knowledge of psychic being, but the psychic being is in front. That's very common. So one may not know words of Mother Shri Aurobindo, no idea about what
But
is
you
soul
experience psychic
consciousness.
being.
Yeah. Yeah, and even then one is living with soul consciousness. So that will happen, of course. But now when we have the opportunity of reading these words, so just making use of it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you
everyone
so
for
much.
joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.